Dear students, our today's topic is deep sea diving physiology. We all know at the sea level the atmospheric pressure is 760 millimeter of mercury. When human beings descend beneath the sea, this pressure rises tremendously. This exposes the blood also to high alveolar gas pressure, and this condition is called hyperbarism. And beyond certain limits, this condition may be dangerous for our physiology. What is the relationship of pressure with the depth? So pressure increases by 1 atmospheric pressure for every 33 feet depth or 10 meters depth. So a person at a depth of 10 meter is exposed to total pressure of 2 atmosphere. 1 atmosphere due to air above the sea level and another 1 atmosphere due to 10 meter of column of water. So depth under the sea is directly proportional to pressure. Try to remember a law, Boyle's law. The volume is inversely proportional to the pressure at a constant temperature. Now beneath the sea, the pressure increases. So volume obviously decreases. See the diagram. At the sea level, the volume is 1 liter. Now, after a depth of 33 feet, pressure will be increased by 1 atmospheric pressure. Pressure will be doubled. So, volume will be halved. So, volume is now half of the original volume. Similarly, at 100 feet, volume is 1/4. Similarly, volume is 1/8 at 233 feet. Now, who will be exposed to the high atmospheric pressure? What are the conditions? One is deep sea diving, then going under the sea in a submarine, then caissons workers. They are the workers who dig under water tunnel or work in a chamber in which atmospheric pressure is high to prevent entry of water. What is the effect of high pressure on respiratory gases? Air under the high atmospheric pressure is now breathed under the sea. At high atmospheric pressure, the partial pressure of all the gases will increase and it will lead to various problems like effect of more partial pressure of oxygen will lead to oxygen toxicity. Similarly, effect of more partial pressure of carbon dioxide and effect of more partial pressure of nitrogen. We will discuss one by one. First is effect of increased partial pressure of oxygen. Now this oxygen toxicity can be acute or it can be chronic. Acute oxygen poisoning is typically characterized by nervous system complications because our brain is very sensitive to acute oxygen poisoning. How nervous system is damaged by acute oxygen poisoning? What is the mechanism? So at high atmospheric pressure, the amount of the oxygen which is dissolved in the plasma will be increased. And at high partial pressure of oxygen, the molecular oxygen is now converted into active oxygen, means superoxide ion. It is a free radical. Now this free radical will oxidize polyunsaturated fatty acid of cell membrane as well as cellular enzymes. Thus it will damage metabolic system of the cell and transport across the cell membrane of the cell. Nervous tissue are highly susceptible to this damage because they have high lipid content in their cell membrane. So complications like disorientation, dizziness, convulsions, coma or death may happen. Chronic oxygen toxicity may occur due to prolonged exposure to oxygen of more than 1 atmospheric pressure, at least 8 hours of oxygen exposure. So it may lead to irritation of the airways. So symptoms may be nasal congestion, sore throat, sneezing, coughing, bronchoconstriction, pulmonary edema, and atelectasis may begin to develop after 12 hours of exposure to oxygen. Bronchopneumonia may be initiated when exposure is for more than 24 hours. It is due to inhibition of macrophage of alveoli as well as decrease in the production of surfactant. Now, what are the effects of increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide buildup occurs when the individual rebreathes the carbon dioxide which she or he has produced. Now, this can happen in the absence of an apparatus which can absorb the carbon dioxide or which can release the expired carbon dioxide out. And with the passage of long time, more PCO2 will build up and it will reach to toxic levels. The maximum tolerated CO2 is up to alveolar PCO2 of 80 millimeter of mercury. If the alveolar PCO2 rises beyond 80 millimeter of mercury, severe respiratory acidosis and carbon dioxide narcosis may occur. Now, what is the effect of increased partial pressure of nitrogen? This is the most significant topic in this context. Volume of the nitrogen dissolved in the body fluid at different depths. You can see at sea level approximately 1 liter will be dissolved. Then 33 feet below the sea level it will be doubled, and then up to 300 feet it will be around 10 liters. Now let us discuss nitrogen narcosis. The partial pressure of the nitrogen rises in the blood when an individual is made to breathe compressed air for 1 hour or more beneath the sea. Due to increase in the partial pressure of the nitrogen, nitrogen dissolves in the body fluids and more easily into fat. Now, as we have discussed right now, the cell membrane of the neuron contains more amount of the lipid. So, more nitrogen is dissolved in neurons of the brain. The nitrogen which is dissolved in the cell membrane of the neuron alters the ionic conductance through the cell membrane. And finally, it decreases the neuronal excitability. And this condition is called nitrogen narcosis. Let us see what are the clinical features of nitrogen narcosis. Clinical features are variable depending upon the depth or depending upon exposure to how much pressure is there. So at 120 feet, approximately 4 to 5 atmospheric pressure, symptoms will be euphoria, jovial, carefree, followed by impairment of mental function and intelligence. At 150 to 200 feet or 6 to 7 atmospheric pressure, drowsiness and poor muscular coordination may occur. At 200 to 250 feet or 7 to 8 atmospheric pressure, extreme fatigue, weakness and stupor may occur. At 250 feet or above 8 atmospheric pressure, deep narcosis, unconsciousness, coma or death may happen. It is very important to note that very short lasting dives do not result in nitrogen narcosis, no matter how it is deep, because nitrogen takes some time to get dissolved. Physiological problem of ascent. Now, after descent, to reach back to the surface is not easy. It may lead to alteration in the physiology. We will discuss both decompression sickness as well as air embolism. Decompression sickness is also known as Cazen's disease, dysbarism, compressed air sickness, the bands, or diver's palsy. Now, what is the cause of decompression sickness? If a diver has been beneath the sea for long enough that large amount of nitrogen has dissolved in the body. Now when this diver suddenly comes back to the surface, significant amount of nitrogen bubbles can be developed in the body fluid either intracellularly or extracellularly and can cause minor to serious damage in almost any area of the body depending upon the number and the size of the bubbles formed. This condition is called decompression sickness. See the mechanism how nitrogen bubbles are formed. Now when person is beneath the sea at a depth, as we have discussed, the partial pressure of the nitrogen increases. Now, when patient suddenly comes to the sea surface, you all know at the sea level, total atmospheric pressure is 760 millimeter of mercury. So, the partial pressure of all the gases will drastically reduced, including nitrogen. And therefore, due to drastical reduction in the partial pressure, nitrogen bubbles are formed because now this dissolved nitrogen is rapidly converted into gaseous form. What are the clinical features of decompression sickness? Pain in the joints and muscles, especially of legs and the arm, and therefore the term bends is used for this condition. Sensation of tingling, numbness and itching. Then the chokes. It is due to massive number of microbubbles plugging the capillaries of the lung, and it is characterized by serious shortness of breath followed by pulmonary edema and sometimes death. Paralysis of muscles may occur. This is temporary paralysis and it is called diver's palsy. Coronary ischemia may also occur, leads to heart attack. Neurological symptoms like dizziness, paralysis, unconsciousness may occur. What is the treatment of this condition? Tank decompression is used for the treatment. Here, the diver is put into a pressurized tank and then recompression is done first to dissolve the nitrogen bubble and then the pressure is lowered gradually back to normal atmospheric pressure. So slow decompression is done so that body can get rid of nitrogen without producing any harmful effect. Our second problem of rapid ascent is air embolism. It is due to entry of air into the blood circulation following rupture of pulmonary capillary or artery or vein caused by sudden expansion of the gases in the lungs due to sudden fall in atmospheric pressure. Such a situation may typically occur among drivers or caissons workers who breathe oxygen-helium mixture at high pressure. Due to accidental leakage in the pressurized cabin, there occurs sudden reduction in the pressure, causing expansion of the gases in the body. Symptoms may be chest pain, tachypnea, hypoxemia, systemic hypotension, etc. Now, how to prevent these physiological problems? So, measure for short duration dive up to 20 meters. It is made safe by adopting a simple and best strategy in which divers take a few rapid and deep breaths before diving, so there will be carbon dioxide washout. Nitrogen does not get enough time to get dissolved, and oxygen toxicity cannot occur as divers is holding the breath. What are the measures for deeper and longer dives? So we can use a breathing apparatus, we can use a breathing mixture containing helium and low oxygen concentration, and last is slow ascent or use of decompression tank. We can use a breathing apparatus which delivers the gas and absorbs carbon dioxide or release the carbon dioxide as bubbles into surrounding. This is open circuit apparatus. And second is scuba apparatus, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. It is a compact arrangement for breathing which the driver can carry with him under the water. See the diagram. Use of the breathing mixture containing helium and low oxygen. It is actually less harmful than natural air because low oxygen concentration can prevent oxygen toxicity and nitrogen is replaced with the helium. Helium has its own advantages. It is a smaller molecule, it has a lower density than nitrogen, it is easy to breathe, it diffuses faster, and it is easy to eliminate its bubbles. The amount of the helium trapped in the body under the high atmospheric pressure is much less than nitrogen because its solubility in the body fluid is less than half that of nitrogen. Helium's narcotic effect is only 1/5 of that of nitrogen. The last measure is slow ascent or use of decompression tank. Now slow ascent with short stay at regular interval means slow and stepwise ascent ensure that only a small amount of nitrogen bubbles are formed at a time and they are eliminated before further ascent. In this way, decompression sickness can be effectively prevented. So if we don't have any breathing apparatus, we can use this measure. Nitrogen elimination from the body. About 2/3 of the nitrogen is liberated in 1 hour and about 90% in 6 hours. So by US Navy, they have prepared a table. So according to this table, if the diver will follow it, diver can be prevented against decompression sickness. So diver who stays 1 hour at a depth of 190 feet, then the total time for decompression will be approximately 3 hours. See the table, how much time should be spent at how much depth is given here. Last is decompression tank. It is based on the principle of slow ascent. After a rapid ascent, the person is put into a pressurized tank and then the pressure of this tank is lowered gradually up to normal atmospheric pressure. So herewith we are finishing deep sea diving physiology. Thank you.